when it came to corruption in Ukraine, Hunter and Joe are joined at the hip. Big news out of Washington, D.C., or actually out of the Central District of California, which is the federal court district out there. There's been a new indictment of Hunter Biden. And it's great that Hunter Biden was indicted related to tax code violations. But to be clear, it's the result of IRS whistleblowers, public pressure, a federal court blowing up that sweetheart plea deal. Remember back in Delaware last, I guess it was the summer now, she blew it up. And now and of course, this indictment initially wanted to be, they were thinking of bringing and should have brought 2 years ago, at least. And they didn't because the Biden Justice Department obstructed it. And so now, 2 years later, is it a day late and a dollar short? I'll let you decide. But I do know there were charges that they could have brought 2 years ago that they passed on and can't bring because the statute of limitations has lapsed. And the case that they brought is somewhat limited in the sense it's significant tax charges, but it's kind of like charging someone for not paying their taxes on their bribes. And the bribes were directed not only at, in my view, Hunter, the evidence shows, but Joe Biden as well. And it blows out of the water, and it has the Justice Department confirming in this indictment that President Biden repeatedly lied when he said that Hunter Biden did nothing wrong and he got no money from China. So here it is in black and white. I want you, we'll provide, I guess we can provide a link to the indictment. You should read the indictment. Remember, they're only allegations. They have to prove this in court. But the Biden Justice Department confirms what I see as a racketeering scheme involving Ukraine, Romania, and China to the benefit of Hunter and Joe Biden. And I'm going to read to you a key section related to that. This is page 3 of the indictment. Between 2016 and 2020, the defendant individually received more than $7 million in total gross income. And then they go through and they describe what that income is. Burisma Holdings Limited. Remember, they tried to impeach Trump. Well, I guess they did impeach Trump, but then they tried to remove him unsuccessfully for raising questions about this Burisma deal. And this indictment confirms those questions were well-founded and that the impeachment of Trump was a cover-up designed to protect Joe and Hunter Biden from being found out for what is now being admitted to by Joe Biden's own Justice Department. In around April 2014, that was when Joe was vice president, defendant Hunter Biden joined the board of directors of Burisma Holdings Limited, a Ukrainian industrial conglomerate. Burisma agreed to pay the defendant an annual salary of approximately $1 million to be paid in monthly disbursements. In March 2017, Burisma, what happened in 2017? Joe Biden left office. Why would Burisma cut Hunter's salary after Joe stopped being vice president? Why do you think that is? Burisma reduced his compensation to approximately $500,000 a year. They cut his salary in half after Joe left office. But he continued to serve on the board of directors until in or around April 2019. As a result, he received a total of approximately about $1 million in 2016, $630,000 in 2017, a little under $500,000 in 2018, and $160,000 in 2019. The Romanian contract. So this is a country you don't hear much about with Hunter Biden, but there was Romanian-related corruption and bribery related to Joe and Hunter as well. In the fall of 2015, when Joe Biden was Vice President of the United States, the defendant entered into an oral agreement with Business Associate 1, purportedly to help a Romanian business person, GP, contest bribery charges he was facing in his home country. GP paid an entity associated with Business Associated 1 through GP's Romanian business between November 2015 and May 2017. Business 1's entity received approximately $3.1 million, which was split roughly into thirds between defendant Business Associate 1 and Business Associate 2. So that was about $1 million for Hunter to help the Romanian target of a corruption investigation escape scrutiny in Romania. Well, how could Hunter do that other than through the auspices of his father's office? Obviously, it was a shakedown. Now, here's the biggie. Well, Burisma's a biggie too, right? I mean, there's only a war in Ukraine. You know, isn't that relevant to this? Of course it is. And then, of course, we face this threat from China that has gotten worse under the Biden administration. And I think because China knows Biden is weak because of his corruption. He's compromised directly by the Chinese. In the late fall of 2015, this is under a section titled CEFC, China Energy Company Ltd. The defendant, Business Associate 1 and Business Associate 2, began to investigate potential infrastructure projects with individuals associated with CEFC China Energy Company Ltd., a Chinese energy conglomerate. In or around December of that year, the defendant met in Washington, D.C. with individuals associated with CEFC. Now, by the way, this is Chinese Communist Government company. This is not, it's not like Pepco or, I don't know what the name of energy companies in other parts of the country are. It's not your regular utility like here in the United States, which, by the way, have too much government control behind them anyway, but that's another matter. But they're not wholly owned entities of the government or controlled entities of the government like they are in communist China. So this is so whenever you hear this company's name mentioned, CEFC, just substitute Chairman Xi, the communist dictator of China. That's who's given the money, practically speaking, to Hunter, and obviously indirectly Joe. In around December of, let me start over on that section. In or around December of that year, the defendant met in Washington, D.C. with individuals associated with CEFC. During the next 2 years, the defendant and his business associates continued to meet with individuals associated with that company, including in February 2017 with the then chairman of the company, the chairman, as the indictment reads. On or about March of 1st, 2017, State Energy HK, a Hong Kong entity associated with CEFC, paid approximately $3 million to Business Associate 1's entity for sourcing deals and for identifying other potential ventures. The defendant had an oral agreement with Business Associate 1 to receive 1/3 of those funds, so that's $1 million from the Chinese communists, or $1 million. The defendant, in turn, directed a portion of those $1 million to Business Associates 3. So he split that with his other buddy. After the state energy payment from the Hong Kong front for the Chinese communists, the defendant, Business Associate 1 and Business Associate 2, began negotiating a joint venture with individuals associated with the Chinese Communist Energy Company, which they called Sino-Hawk. Over the summer of 2017, the defendant cut out his Sino-Hawk business partners and separately negotiated a venture with individuals associated with the CEFC called Hudson West 3. Now, Sino-Hawk, was that Tony Bobulinski's group? I think that was. And I think he was the one who was cut out. On or about August 2nd, 2017, the defendant executed on behalf of Owasco, O-W-A-S-C-O, P-C, which is a front, again, for Hunter. So that's Hunter's companies, his and his business associates' company. The operating agreement for Hudson West 3. Hudson West 3 was founded with an initial $5 million capital contribution from an entity that was not owned or controlled by the defendant. The contract further named the defendant as a manager of Hudson West 3 and specify he would receive compensation of $100,000 per month and a one-time retainer fee of $500,000. Owasco POC paid no capital contribution for its ownership share of HW3. So what does that all tell you? The Chinese gave Hunter $5 million and he drew money from it. In exchange for what? It's not clear. Well, we kind of know what, which is influence peddling. Shortly after execution of the contract, on or about August 8, 2017, Hudson West transferred approximately $400,000 to Owasco, I think is the name, and that's again the Hunter company. Thereafter, Owasco received monthly transfers of approximately $165,000. So they kept on getting money from that pot of gold the Chinese had given them. In total, Hudson West made 7 transfers to Owasco, totaling approximately $1.445 million, and that was in 2017. And then he transferred some of that, $555,000, to his business associate 3. In 2018, Hudson West 3 made another 15 transfers, totaling approximately $2.1 million, and of that, Hunter kept the bulk. He only transferred $843,000 of that to his business associate. So all of that, the government attributes as Biden's income that he did not report on, and instead he was spending money on the following items, allegedly. All sorts of detail. I mean, some of which is, you don't want the IRS digging into you, because they can find out every last thing you were doing with your money. And Hunter, rather than paying his taxes, was taking out approximately, I'm looking for the chart, forgive me for, and I didn't tell my colleagues here I was going to look at the chart. Do you all see the chart, what I'm looking for in the back of the expenses? What the page is? Well, anyway, he took out $1 million plus. I remember the chart. I'm not going to look for it anymore.
Page 13.
Oh, page 13. There we are. To the rescue. So rather than paying his taxes, he's giving money to his father in part, it looks like. $1.6 million in cash ATM withdrawals. So you know where that money went. Payments to various women. Again, that's the government's words, not mine. $683,000. So the prostitute trade did well. Clothing and accessories, $397,000. That's a lot of money. I mean, I can't imagine spending. I'm one of these people who would have trouble spending $100 on a piece of clothing at any one time. Unbelievable. Tuition, educational activities, $309,000. Retail purchases, $236,000. So all sorts of purchases that are unrelated to the taxes he owed, which I think was well over $1 million in taxes that he was refusing to pay for years, for a total of $4.9 million. So of that 4.9, he should have been paying his taxes, the government says. So as I said earlier, it's a devastating indictment of what Hunter was up to, and it confirms that monies were flowing overseas into Hunter's business ventures, and they were being used to take care of his personal expenses. And the purposes of these monies has been alleged with quite serious evidence to be bribery. Specifically, Burisma is alleged to have offered bribes or was giving bribes to Hunter and Joe to keep anti-corruption investigators off their back in Ukraine, $5 million each for them. And China's taking care of Joe Biden's son and Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, the evidence is, was also involved with this CEFC as well after he was vice president. And we know separately from Judicial Watch's investigations that Hunter Biden was traveling all over the world with Secret Service protection while his father was vice president, including on Air Force Two to China, where I think Joe was involved in a meeting with one of Hunter's business associates or wannabe business associates. So this is not, obviously Hunter Biden is facing time in jail as a result of this indictment, which, as I said, doesn't really go to the heart of the issue, which is this was a bribery scheme. This was racketeering. Joe and Hunter Biden, the evidence demonstrates, should have been registered as foreign agents, right? Foreign agents for China. But this is corruption that goes to the heart of the presidency of Joe Biden. We have more evidence coming out this week from Comer's committee that this Owasco, I think, gave money directly to Joe. So these business entities were paying Joe. Now, the defenders of Joe Biden are saying, oh, those were for loans. Those were for car payments, providing no evidence. And of course, loans and car payments and repayments are notorious covers for illicit cash transfers. Loan repayment. How many mafiosi have used loan repayment to to disguise a transfer of wealth to a capo or something? I mean, let's be clear. The Biden family, their business operations were run like a racketeering operation, and the idea that, we have demonstrated evidence of money going to Joe, but the idea that the money had to go to Joe in order for it to be a crime, the racketeering, is baloney. If I come in and say, take care of my family member, or I'm aware my family member is being taken care of someone with illicit monies because of my position, and they expect favors from me in return, that's bribery. Is under the law as sure as I'm getting the money directly. Of course it is, right? Of course. So I encourage you to read the indictment. I encourage you to encourage your members of Congress to move impeachment along forthwith. They can't impeach Joe Biden soon enough. I mean, right now there's a fight over whether Hunter Biden is going to testify pursuant to a subpoena by the House of Representatives. Now, he may or may not testify. Whether that fight happens or not, I don't think is necessary to the issue of whether or not Joe Biden is impeached. But I keep on going back to they tried to drive Trump out of office for blowing the whistle on the corruption that has this day been confirmed by the Biden Justice Department. Incredible. Incredible. So I'll keep track of this for you. Anything important happens in these cases, I'll try to let you know. And of course, Judicial Watch will continue its independent investigations of this Biden corruption. For instance, we exposed just last week, I want to remind you because it is important. I don't want you to forget it. And if you haven't heard about it, I want you to know that Judicial Watch uncovered an email through the National Archives showing that Joe Biden's staff in the vice president's office sent him and copied Hunter Biden an email about a meeting with the Ukrainian president. Why was Hunter Biden copied on an email about a meeting with the Ukrainian president? It further shows that when it came to corruption in Ukraine, Hunter and Joe are joined at the hip. And again, that's uncovered by Judicial Watch, not by Congress. Was it released voluntarily? Either we had to sue for it. Federal lawsuit. That tells you something, that it takes a federal lawsuit to get a simple email like that out, right? years after the vice president left office. It's now, was it 7 years? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.